Are around 12 people, if I'm not mistaken. So good morning, everyone. Yeah, we're gonna get starting slowly at the beginning. So good morning, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining this fourth webinar organized in the framework of the MITOMED project. I can see a lot of familiar names in the list, but I'm just gonna briefly introduce perhaps the topic and the project again for those who may not know it. So WinterMed is a Interreg-Med project co-financed by the European Regional Development Fund, and WinterMed stands for Winter Islands Network for all year-round tourism experience in the Mediterranean. So this is, as I was saying, the fourth webinar that the project is organizing to present tools and methodologies that were developed in the framework of other past or ongoing projects which we deemed interesting or relevant towards the implementation of WinterMed. So before starting, I would like to briefly introduce the team that will be supporting us technically speaking today. So it will be Lorena Vidas from Angi Toscana, who's the lead partner of the project, as well as Massimiliano Gini. They will be both assisting with technical issues. Speaking of technical issues, you've all been designated as panelists, which means that, well, normally you should be able to take the floor any minute, but we would kindly ask you to wait until the question and answer session to take the floor. You can, throughout the of course, throughout the presentation, you can always ask questions through the chat. We won't have question and answers box today because we think it's more handy to concentrate all the questions in the chat box. So if you ever want to ask any question or need assistance, please do it through the chat. Okay, then. I'm gonna, before we start, I'm gonna introduce a bit the topic of our webinar today. The webinar will focus on one of the tools that was developed by the MITOMED Plus project, which is another 3-year Interreg-Med project on sustainable tourism, which ended in January this year, so recently. MITOMED Plus focused on public policies for the sustainable development of maritime and coastal tourism. It developed a series of tools, evaluation and planning tools, such as an open platform for data indicators, as well as a green beach model, which you can all find in the website. But I know that there was the first webinar was dedicated to these two tools. But for those who didn't attend the first webinar, you can always find information on MITOMED Plus's website. And in the framework of the project, we also developed a management model that gathers a series of recommendations, tools, and practices based on the work done and the results of the project, with the aim to improve sustainable and responsible maritime coastal tourism planning in the Mediterranean. And this tool was designed in the framework of the project's capitalization phase that the CPMR Inter-Mediterranean Commission, which I represent, developed together with a consulting company that is being represented today by Nagore Espinosa, which I will introduce a few seconds later. And in the framework of this capitalization phase of the project, we also developed a policy paper and a model of memorandum of understanding to encourage Mediterranean destinations to follow the recommendations that were gathered in the model. Well, as I was saying, the tool was developed by the Into Destination consultancy, represented today by Nagore Espinosa, expert in tourism, whom I'd like to thank very much for being with us today and to make the presentation, because she was the expert working on the model. She knows it perfectly, and her presentation would be much better than I could ever do, actually. So it's better that she does it and that she presents the model. And I'm pretty sure that she'll be able to answer most of the questions you may have regarding the model itself or its implementation. So once again, thank you very much, Nagore, for being with us today. And well, with no further ado, I will leave you the floor to introduce the model. And as I was saying, we will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. But if you ever want to ask any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to do it through the chat. Nagore, floor is yours.
Thank you, Emmanuel. You do a great presentation. Don't be so humble. I'm grateful that you counted on Into Destination in the first place to develop the management model, and happy always to come back and work for you and the rest of the team behind MITOMED Plus and WinterMed as well. So honored to be here today with all of you and participants listening to the destination, which to the presentation, which I think that is even more pertinent currently through the COVID-19 crisis that we are going through. So I'm gonna start presenting. Okay. All right. Do you see it? Because yeah, okay. Do you see it now? Perfect.
Yes, yes.
All right. So the first question, which I'm not waiting for your answer because I honestly would imagine that you're saying yes, is if we want to be sustainable tourism destinations. I would imagine that if we are spending this hour of our lives in this session, it's because we really truly believe the response is yes. Okay. But perhaps we don't even know what that means, even if we want to be sustainable. So here, since I'm going to be sharing these slides with you, and I would imagine that the participants are going to be receiving these slides, here's a hyperlink to the video that if we have time, perhaps later we can watch it. But since it takes quite a few minutes, I consider better for me presenting it. But I think it's relevant when you are start discussing with your stakeholders in your own destination that you want to move towards having a management system that actually allows you to reach that goal of being sustainable. That perhaps kind of a video is something easy to be shared, so it might be a useful tool for you and your stakeholders to start this discussion if you've never embarked on, okay, you know, let's take this seriously, let's manage our destination. So we really need to understand that if we really want to be sustainable, our management should reflect that commitment to sustainability. What does this mean? Because it sounds like super obvious, right? Well, have you ever seen yourself saying, our goal for the next trimester or for the next quarter or for the next year is we want to increase, I don't know, 2%, 3%, 20%, the volume of visitors that are coming to us, period. That's our only goal. Then if that's your only goal, we have an issue, because that goal on its own, alone, has nothing to do with sustainability. For sure, it might have to do with paying the rent and paying for salaries and so forth. So increasing in terms of the volume of tourism and hopefully the volume of people paying for services, which might not actually be the case. You might increase the volume of same-day visitors that might not actually be spending that much, or are even people sleeping over, but not necessarily spending that much on other else beyond having breakfast and sleeping in the destination. So we really need to think it through what we mean by being sustainable, so that our management takes us there. So we see our vision, our goal, where do we want us to be in a few years from now, not 20 years, because who can plan that? You can plan it, but never do it. So you have to think on much shorter time, and you really need to start thinking on how do we get there. And surely you cannot do it alone. That's why most of this management model pivots on the idea of collaboration, of different stakeholders coming together. Why destinations should implement the management model? I partially have responded to this question already, and we are responding the model to this, but we don't create our own words. We just took old words that UNWTO already said it quite a few years back. In 2007, the UNWTO launches a handbook on how to manage a destination, and this remains still relevant. So they say the main reasons for implementing a management model should be ensuring tourism sustainability. Okay, we need to know what it means, but then we have to ensure that it goes that way. Establishing a competitive edge. Nobody said that because we have to be sustainable, we want to be sustainable. We need to be the least competitive destination. No. Part of the sustainability area is the economic perspective. Okay, so since the economic perspective is one of the sustainability dimensions, we certainly have to keep working towards the competitive edge. Spreading the benefits of tourism. Okay, usually in most destinations, no matter how small, you have a certain part of your destination that is more focused towards tourism, and most of the benefits are there, but perhaps the impacts, even the negative ones, might be affecting other parts of the destination. So it would be relevant, if the residents so want it, that these benefits are spread to perhaps other parts of the destination, not because perhaps visitors are going there, but because companies can establish there and still service the services somewhere else. So it's not just a matter of geographically, but it's also a matter of economically spread it, okay? Improving tourism yield. I go back to my example before. If our main goal is, I want to increase the 3% in volume, in number of visitors, we're forgetting that we're not an NGO. We're not just, for people to have fun. We're here to make a business, to create good well-being for our residents, which means that the salaries, so the benefits and salaries of employees in the tourism sector have to be reasonable, have to be good for them to have a good well-being in their destination. So it means that we have to improve our tourism yield. So the amount of that is left out in the destination through these people coming over has to be increasing. It increased just because it increased. No, it doesn't. Certainly, you have to work really hard to be that competitive edge so that demand perceives that the money they are spending with you, even if it is perhaps higher or middle to higher than in other destinations, is because they see the value behind it. Okay, so that's what everything is connected, as you can see. And then building a strong and vibrant brand identity is a no-brainer. I mean, most of the money usually in tourism is spent on marketing. Why? Because if they've never heard of us, why would they spend their money on us? Okay, and a good rate of money for a good value proposal. Okay, so who should implement the management model? Because this is pretty important. We talk about a management model, but we need to understand who should be leading it and who should be part of the picture, the full picture. So you don't see much here because it's pretty small, but I'll be explaining it. So the idea is you might be so small that you do not have a destination management organization, or you have never even heard of the concept. Fine. A destination management organization, by the way, the M doesn't mean marketing. I know it has been in the past in many places in the world, but the idea here is that the M means management. It's an entity that brings together people from the, I would say, different parts of the view of the destination. So certainly you need to bring in the private sector, so the actual people that work with visitors and give them the service that they are asking for, and hopefully in a very great quality, and they are satisfied and so on and so forth, because that's kind of the initial part. Otherwise, we don't have any tourism in our destination. Another part is the public administration. You might actually need not only the tourism part, but you might need other parts of the administration. You might decide whether they are inner core or they might be bring into some of the meetings. That's for you to decide. But for instance, all the part on transportation, usually the tourism administration doesn't control transport, even if transport is one of the key industries in our tourism economic sector, okay? So you might need other public administrations that are beyond the ones that, tourism directly you can control, okay? You might also need to have agreements with upper destination. So in the sense that if you're super tiny, local, or even a big one, but you're a municipality, you probably need the provincial level or county level or regional level, and then the actual country level, okay, the national one. Probably if you, one of your main portions of your destination is a park, and there's an authority managing that park, you might need to have them in a table discussing with you where do you want to go from here onwards. Or if you're a city and you have a specific grouping of people that are representing the interest of the old center or the town center, or whatever it's called, it might be relevant. So anybody that is relevant in terms of the destination, looking at it from a city perspective to a destination perspective, needs to be part of this discussion. Residents should be there. You might have to think how, whether the public administration is already representing the residents, or there might be a representative of the residents bringing into the discussion. And something that many people tend to forget, if we are developing tourism and we have no background of this and we have never embarked on a planning process, bring experts in. You might not have a university in your destination, but there might be a university 50 kilometers from you or 100 kilometers from you. Look, we're talking to each other through a video conference. They don't even have to drive to your destination. We can do it remotely. Bringing their knowledge to you so that you don't make up mistakes that other destinations have done in the past, just jumping through all the errors, okay? So bring in knowledge, don't be afraid of that, and I'm sure universities will be happy to help you so that their students also, bring in that knowledge when they're studying the master's degree or whatever it is, or if you have the money to pay for that. How do we implement the management model? Okay, so the idea of the management model and the way we did it is step by step. It has 5 steps, okay, and we're going to be working through them going through them now. So the first one is the leading and collaborating structure. So it is clear that out of, in order to obtain a management model, but actually implementing your destination, there has to be people collaborating. But it cannot be that you collaborate now, COVID-19, we are all super stressed out. We when things are harsh, we come out together, but then when things are super good, we don't even know each other. The idea is that it's a collaborating structure that is stable over time, okay? So the idea should be a mix of public and private, okay, in terms of what it fits culturally and legally in your destination. Of course, every destination has different frameworks on how this can work. Then a stable structure, so for sure you need to secure some sort of funds, because if everything depends on people being completely volunteer, it doesn't work. In the long run, people get, burn up, and they're going to stop, collaborating. So because probably the kind of good outcomes of this, you're not going to see them in 2 months. You're going to see them perhaps in 2-3 years. And if you're asking them to be volunteers for 2-3 years, you're asking too much of people. Okay, so you certainly need to secure funds. You need to secure who is in the table. Because if the people in the table are there to make noise and they do not represent the sector, they're not the leaders. The others are not going to be looking at them, okay, what are they doing? I want to follow these people through. Okay, because if you want the full destination to be like a ship that everyone, is rowing towards going in the same direction, you need to make sure that as part of that stable structure, you have the leaders as part of it, okay? And leaders don't come easy, okay? I'm not talking money, I'm talking trust. You have to build trust so that these people engage with you in this management model, in this collaborating structure, okay? So it would be ideal if it is empowered legally, okay? So if there's some sort of agreement, written agreement, I know in my culture also everything is verbal, okay? But it's pretty important to have something in written in terms of how much of hours am I giving you and what am I taking out from this and who are we helping and for what, and so on and so forth, okay? Without selling the expectation that in 3 months they're going to be selling more because they're part of this management model and this management structure, because it's not going to be the case, okay? Point clear. What they're taking from this is that they're going to be part of a wider strategy that is going to be good for them probably in medium term, not in the immediate term, okay? Which is, I know it's difficult. Being multidimensional, Okay, so in the sense that we have the focus locally, but we have our eyes open to where our demand coming from. So which are our main markets? Who can we talk to be aware of the different trends that are there in the other markets we're looking at, and so on and so forth. Staying connected to perhaps even people that finances us, so perhaps the regional level or the country level or the European level, if we're getting funds from like projects like this one in terms of European level, okay? And then kind of this organization has a clear job and is being in charge of the definition of the strategy, of the planning, and most importantly, of the implementation and monitoring and evaluating of that. Because you bring people to the conversations and you keep talking and talking and you do not implement anything, you're burning people up again. Okay, so this is kind of the circles I was talking about, okay? Kind of the blue one will be the actors that you really, really need. And on green ones would be the ones you need to talk to, but they not have to be involved in every single meeting you're gonna be having, okay? Step 2, assessment, okay? I know people here, hate the word assessment or hate the word measuring or diagnosis. I know, I work on that and I know. But you need to know which is your starting point. What if half of your table of these stakeholders think, well, we're doing things great. And what if the other half is thinking, no, we have too many people, but these people are not spending the amount of money we want. Or they are noisy, or they, get undressed at the middle of the municipality because they just come from the beach and they think that, it's fine working by on a bikini, and it's not. So you really need to assess what's going on before you embark on the next step, which is actually thinking on the vision. So which is our starting point? So we need to understand the supply analysis. What if we're thinking, yeah, we want to be sustainable, and 3% of your supply is actually thinking on sustainability? We have an issue. How can we sell sustainability if nobody's working in sustainability? Okay, everyone is keeping the lights on forever, and nobody's saving money on water, or they're all using plastic, or tons of different things that you might be doing wrong only on the environmental one, but you could be looking at the economic and the social perspective. Okay. So demand analysis, we need to understand the visitors that are coming to us. Are they mostly tourists? Are they mostly same-day visitors or excursionists? Are they spending as much as we need? Are they spending on things that we produce, or are they spending money mostly on things that someone else is producing and is coming over and bringing it here, so we're not making any money out of them? What's going on? Tourism plans, strategic plans, marketing plans, for sure you've done, even if they were, single paper somewhere written, and you did awful work or a great work. What did it work? What didn't work? And why? What did you learn from that? Okay, so that we don't go on in the same mistakes with the same people, and so we don't want to burn people up. MITOMED class indicators. Emmanuel mentioned it before. One of the big outputs that MITOMED class did was a set of indicators, very well structured in terms of what are they for, how to measure it, and so on and so forth. And they are very much concentrated on the sustainability perspective. So it's pretty important to be able to measure them so that on the sustainability different dimensions, how are you looking at, okay? How are you, nice or not on the picture? And the work ahead in terms of what should you be doing. Current trends and risks that you might be detecting, there's something to be measured all the time, okay? Something I forgot to mention. The 5 steps to do the management model, it's not like, oh, I did a step 1, I forget about it. No. This is like any relationship, okay? If you start a relationship with a set of people, you need to nurture that. So this collaborating structure, for it to be stable, you have to work through life for the rest of your life. This is step 1. And step 2 is the same. For sure, at the initial moment, you're going to be assessing what's your starting point. But then you need to keep assessing whether you're going on the right direction or not, okay? We will talk about that on the 5th step, but is the idea. And step 3, shared vision, budget, and time frame. It's a no-brainer. We know where we are starting from, and we have this collaborating structure going, but where are we going? Where do we want to get at, okay? So we basically have to respond to the question, which is not easy. How do we want our destination to be 5-10 years from now? We wanted, Disneyland, nobody can live here, Or do we want a lot of people that are going to be making noise, but yeah, the 4, businesses that are going to be making money out of that, we are happy with that, or not? Or we want some other type of tourism. We don't want so many same day tourists, which, by the way, you cannot actually, close the borders probably of your destination. So, but you need to think what kind of a destination you want and where's the balance between the people that are making money from it and those that are not, okay? So bringing in the right people to the table in this collaborating structure, you start drafting your first vision, okay? You draft this first vision, then with the budget, okay? Because if you suddenly decide that you want to be in New York City, it takes a bit of money, okay? And a time frame, okay? And this is shared widely beyond this blue circle I showed you, okay? So it has to be shared to other people in the destination. These leaders that are part of the blue circle should be sharing it with other members of the destination, people earning money from tourism and people not earning money from tourism, okay? And you need to understand what's their intake on the whole thing. You digest that on your different focus groups and understand and get to the point. You need experts for this. You need the academia or consultants, whatever it is, but you need, because otherwise it can be biased, the whole process, okay? So you need some objectivity here in this process. And then you get a final draft. You bring in again the different people that are main of this blue circle. They define it and they, refine it again, secure a budget and a calendar, and again, they present it for the full destination to be aware, okay, so thanks to your work, we've decided that this is the vision we have, the budget we have, the calendar we're working with, okay? And commitments are done and are approved. On our step 4, we have to formulate, consult, and approve the Sustainable Tourism Development Strategic Plan, okay? So why have you done a vision? So that you get a plan out of that and you know what kind of actions you have to commit to. These are the main pillars, okay? So governance, innovation, inclusion, sustainability, competitiveness, social, environmental, and economic. For sure, these are huge words, but you have to transform them into actual actions with people responsible for them and an actual calendar. That's the process, okay? Now it is talking about a 200 pages strategic plan. Who wants that? No, it's something short but to the point and well argued, okay? And discussed through people. So it's basically the same process as we did before, but more complex in the terms that you have to go down to actions specifically in terms of, for these big strategic lines and areas we have defined, we share them with the rest of the stakeholders, we get feedback, we validate them. Okay, we go again to the next circle, which is actions with responsible people with the different calendar. And then again, we get feedback with our pre-final version. We have our board, our feedback, our adjustments, and we have the final one where again is so as you can see, transparency and communication is critical for the full process, okay? Because if only 4 people are part of this discussion, don't expect the rest of the destination to follow through, because they're gonna think that only those 4 people were part of it. So they didn't ask me, so why should I, implement this that they're proposing? And the 5-step no-brainer has to be taken on monitoring and evaluating, okay? So we should be monitoring and evaluating where are we, in terms of the different issues that might have emerged through the process, the different actions, whether they were implemented or not, why not, why yes, how did it go through, and in terms also to the relevant indicators of the action plans, and also in terms of the sustainable measures. So that's why I mentioned that the assessment step 2 comes back again here, and we have to keep measuring in that sense, okay? The key principles as a backbone of the model that are behind the model all the time is that we need to think on policy drawing and implementing, okay? We might need a framework of policy for certain of the actions that we want to accomplish. A structure, definition, implementation, and strengthening of the full structure of collaborating structure, coordination and cooperation of the stakeholders. I've been mentioning that all the time. Value chain strengthening. If we really want to be on a competitive edge, the full value chain has to be strong in terms of delivering these services to a good quality for good price, actually, for a relevant price that can actually revert on very good salaries for our employees. Rigorous and sustained measurement, for sure, so that we know if we are going in the right or wrong direction. Communication, Okay, we have to be transparent and we have to communicate, and we need to create a culture of data so that people actually make decisions based on data, rigorous data they can rely on, and innovation. Like we've seen now in COVID-19, and we have to transform part of our services into more e-commerce sometimes, or different innovations that you can do. So I stop talking now, and questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Nagore, for the very concise, clear, and thorough presentation of the model. Yes, as you said, now it's time for questions. I can see that we have some of them coming. Thank you, Lorena, for breaking the ice. However, attendees, participants are also very welcome to ask any question they may have. So perhaps we can start with questions from the audience, if there is any. Otherwise, we'll use the questions Lorena sent, which are very accurate and relevant questions. So do we have any questions from the floor? Nope. Don't be shy. Well, we can start with this very, well, at the same time, it's a broad but very relevant question, as I said. So in your experience, what is the best way to involve different groups of stakeholders in the participatory process?
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you, Lorena, for posing these questions. So the idea is that the best way is to understand your audience. Okay, it's like when you go to your boss to ask them for a permit to embark on a project, and he's gonna say, "Where's the money coming from?" Right. So for sure, you understand where are gonna be the key points that in any conversation you understand that the other side is gonna expect responses to key questions. So it's the same here. You need to understand if you're embarking the town center, imagine town center management grouping or whatever it is, they need to understand how many hours a year are you expecting them to be involved and for what? Where are they getting out of it? Oh, what you're getting is that we're going to try to transform this so that most of your queries or most of your demands are going to be heard, and you're going to be part of the discussion through the full process, so that your intakes are going to be part of the process. So we're not looking to damage you more, rather to take those demands in and see how we can find a balance. For instance, with the private sector, mostly it's make sure that you don't sell that they're going to be selling more, because this is pretty important. Rather, that you're going to be working with them so that you end up targeting the demand that works for them, and also the one that works for the residents where they actually live, because everything goes south from there, in the sense of, what if you don't embark on the situation and the plan goes in a certain way, and it turns out, okay, we're not going to give any licenses for more businesses. It's not a desirable position. So you're not threatening them. You're just saying, if we don't generate a dialogue, awful situations can come up with over-tourism in social networks, tons of different horrible things that can happen just because we avoided discussing. So I think it's better to make them understand how the process works, the amount of investment in terms of time you're asking from them, and what's kind of the calendar that you can expect from them and from the full process, and when things are going to be moving into actual actions that they can see on and embark on and engage. And do not oversell it, because always that the public administration is involved, and I've worked for the public administration for quite a few years, it's slow. So you cannot sell that it's going to be quick, and they know that it's not going to be quick.
thank you, Nagore, for the answer. And if there are any reactions on the answers provided by Nagore, please feel free to take the floor. You have this possibility. So if you, well, in this case, Lorena, if there are any other things you'd like to ask related to this question, please feel free to do it, and same for other participants, of course. We have another question here, which is from Lorena as well. So do you think that the proposed methodology of the MITOMED Plus management model can help destinations to rethink tourist activities in the current situation caused by the COVID-19 crisis? And if yes, do you think it should be adapted in some way?
Okay, no, I don't think it has to be adapted, and I do think it's useful. So ourselves, my company, we've been helping different destinations through this process in terms of develop a plan on what should they do, even destinations that they already had in a strategic plan, but a strategic plan didn't have inside a COVID-19 pandemic. So certainly we've helped in this process, and this management model helps in all the 5 steps. Because if you already have the collaborating structure, okay, that step is done. You keep to nurture that collaborating structure, but it's already there. Then in terms of what's your vision? Okay, my vision is I want to get out of this pandemic, out of this pandemic, is stronger than what it, we enter into it. Okay, then clearly competitiveness, innovation, and so on and so forth is going to be even more critical in this period. How do we do that when our businesses are suffering from basically selling nothing for 2-3 months? Okay, so the idea is that you go through the full process just with more pressing matters and prioritizing better in a short kind of a period of time. What are you going to be able to accomplish? So kind of trying to be visible in terms of what you can accomplish in a short period of time. And another thing that I believe is really important is the step number 2 and the step number 5 in terms of assessing who are you counting in terms of out of the private sector, how many of them are willing to embark on this? Because perhaps it's a section of your private sector are like, okay, I like this idea to get out of this crisis stronger and more innovative, and there might be others that are like, no, I just want to business as usual. And it happens. So you need to understand who are you embarking with, and whether there's something else that you can do for these other kind of stakeholders that nonetheless they're going to be there. Okay, so the full process fits perfectly.
Thank you, Nagore. We have another very interesting question, which is a broad one as well. What are the main errors the destinations are usually doing in the process of developing their strategies for the tourism sector?
Okay, main issue is step 1. Most people skip that step. Okay, mostly if they have money. If they have money, okay, me, public administration, I have the money. Why should I call the stakeholders? I'll just go with the run, and I do my strategic plan on what I intend to do. Yeah, that's main mistake. It can happen on the private sector as well. Remember that in different parts of the world, destinations or DMOs are privately financed also, and they said, okay, we can do our own with the kind of private sector and the kind of demand we want on ourselves, we do it. Okay, which again is a partial view of what goes on. Second mistake, most of the money goes to marketing. So we're again thinking that we're going to be sustainable, but most of the money goes to marketing campaigns. So my main goal is actually volume of people, because having most of the money on the marketing side necessarily doesn't have to be wrong if part of that money is for measuring for, okay, who are the ones coming in now? Are the ones we want or not? Part of them, yes, perhaps, part of them, not so much. And those that actually we have and we want, how can we convince more of those to come? And what are we doing right or wrong to bring those along? Okay, fine. If all of that is in the marketing part, fantastic. Okay, we would be missing on everything that concerns having our value chain strength. Okay, because how do we strengthen our value chain if there's no money for training or for some sort of subsidies that incentivize them to, implement policies in terms of sustainability, or even as basic as how do I sell that I'm sustainable? Because you cannot just, put in your website, I'm sustainable, come, to my accommodation. What does that mean? Many people don't even know what the word means, okay? And now that in some countries we're using the word responsible to attach it to COVID-19 protocols, it's even more confusing. So, there's a lot of mistakes in terms of who do we work with in terms of the step 1, how do we finance the whole thing, and on whether we want to be sustainable, but most of the money goes somewhere else.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Giuseppe Rodriguez from the Sustainable Tourism Community of IntragMed. So thank you very much, Giuseppe, for joining today. So the question is, what are the main obstacles to implement such kind of model, taking into account the reality of Mediterranean destinations?
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe. Super happy to see that you're here. And thank you for the question. So the thing specifically is probably Mediterranean destinations, they have the pressure of tourism being the main economic source in many destinations in the Mediterranean. Not just the small ones, even big ones. If you have that situation, there's a lot of pressure on volume specifically. But the key point here would be using the argument of, do we want our great grandkids to still have tourism to be developed in our destination? Then we really need to reroute our strategies on volume and move them probably towards expenditure of the visitors, towards better quality and better price again as well. And there's a huge competition. So what I think is that in terms of the Mediterranean, there should be kind of an agreement, because not only the sea that you share suffers, but also inland there's sufferings created to not looking at the sustainability perspective. So I think that in terms of the main obstacles is, I'm sorry to point it like this, but if the politician in charge only wants to be out there saying, I increased in 3%, 20%, we have a huge issue. And both the technical people behind that politician and the private sector, part of it, probably not the full private sector, needs to, be able to reach an agreement in terms of, no, we want something else for our destination, okay? Because we want to be still here 90 years from now and 150 years from now. And there's tons of evidence from the environmental perspective of the damage we're doing to not only the sea again, but the inland damage that we are creating to residents and so on and so forth. So I think that the main obstacle is basically convincing the ones that won the elections that they can still win elections with other argument beyond the percentage. Another obstacle is that many of those that elected those in our sector, in the private sector, openly say things like this: I don't want the residents that are not involved in tourism to be part of the discussion, and they really oppose it because they only want their view on the table. And we need to kind of increase in terms of our ethics and how we have to, fight that. And it happens very often. We also have to fight those portions of the private sector that they don't care about quality of the visitor. My business model is volume. I don't care. And that conflicts completely with a sustainability perspective in terms of we might need volume for sure, because otherwise we close down a lot of companies. But what if that volume is a bit of transformed into some sort of attitudes that coexist with our residents, with less noise, with a better attitude, a better, better self. Basically, you just move yourself from your residence to your second residence or to your vacations destination, and you don't transform into an unhealthy completely person, but someone that you can, and marketing again is part of the help there. And you might embark people on that area if they still see they're not losing 70% of their business. Okay, so I would say that those are the main obstacles. And as you can see, most them are here. This is a state of mind whether we believe that this is the way forward for us and our generations or not. I don't know if you agree with my replies. I'm giving replies, but I don't know any feedback. So
I guess this answers quite well the question, but perhaps, I don't know, Giuseppe, feel free to intervene and ask for any clarifications if needed. Otherwise, we'll jump to the next and last question for now. Okay, so we have a last question for now, but then we'll see whether more coming up or not. The last one is, do you know from your experience, is there good practice that already uses this model? Well, do you have any good practice in mind, into brackets destination, that already uses this model in the planning of tourism in the destination. So do you have any, let's say, case example?
Specifically, I wouldn't know. Emmanuel, probably you know if some of the destinations that signed the memorandum of understanding on implementing this management model, whether they went forward or not. But some of our clients follow this logic. Okay. So I'm talking Spain cases at the local level, regional level, and also at the, in our case, autonomous community. So would be a lender in Germany. So kind of departments in France. And they do work like that in the sense that they're led from the public sector in my examples. So it's true that the initiative comes from the public side, not necessarily good or bad, it's just what it happens, but they bring in the private sector, which is difficult. It's super time consuming, but it's the only way forward, because if you go on your own, as we were saying before, they're probably not going to be agreeing with most of the things you've said, because you haven't even talked to them and you don't even know their intake on things. So it's and we've done it on the COVID-19 again. For instance, Navarra in the north of Spain, they've embarked on this process with a COVID-19 plan, which is a 2-year plan actually. So they've gone, even if they had a long strategic plan, they've created kind of a specific space within it for this, and they follow all of the steps. They've even 2 years ago or 1 year ago achieved that their tourism observatory, which that's a step 2 and a step 5 of the model, has been, they applied for the network that UNWTO has on sustainable international network of tourism sustainable observatories, NECSTouR, and they've applied and they want to be part of the first Spanish observatory to be in this network in the UNWTO. So it's, I don't know if you know about Navarra, but it's not the most tourism related economy in our country, in Spain, but still they really understand. They're much more of an industrial region. So I guess this idea of working in this consensus part and working from the competitive perspective is part of the DNA as well. I guess that's something that is an advantage from the start. Thinking on destinations that are much more based on tourism, there are destinations are starting to embark on this on the Mediterranean, but it's becoming difficult in the sense of the governance. So as I said, the politician on top says yes, that believes on this and thinks that this is the path forward, but when the moment comes to act on it, is not acting on it. So I know it's difficult, but what it's getting us forward in those cases is trying to bring in the part of the private sector that really believes in this with the technical people below that politician to move it forward. It's the only hope we have, that this goes forward. So yeah, it's actually something that you can implement, as I was saying, but it has obstacles, as you're pointing.
Thank you, Nagore. Yeah, concerning the other destinations, especially MITOMED Plus ones, I know that quite a few signed a memorandum of understanding. To be honest, we haven't kept track of each of them. So I'm tempted to ask perhaps our colleagues from Toscana whether they have any news on this and whether they know if the model was actually applied in Tuscany, for instance. But concerning other destinations, we are working currently on the extension of let's say the model in other territories, especially in southern territories, which are very interested in having methodologies to have them define tourism strategies. For instance, in Tunisia, Morocco, so we are working on this, but nothing concrete on this side of the Mediterranean for now. So I don't know, Lorena, or other partners from previous partners from MITOMED Plus, if you have any news on this.
So we know that the Tuscany region, because we are part of this participatory process, is working on the model. And we are not sure how many local destinations are following it and implementing, but for sure those that were involved from the beginning in MITOMED Plus and that also participated in other pilot, the Green Beach model, they are still working on the model. We are now in a strange situation because we opened management crisis working groups and we abandoned a little bit the normal ITER for strategy development. But we hope that this will also be an opportunity for the destination to rethink their tourism strategies and activities. Let's hope that once this crisis is over, they don't embark again in the mass tourism because of this economic crisis, they can't wait actually to start work again. So we have an opportunity, but there is also a threat in some way. If once this crisis is over, we don't see another increase of tourism activities in not a sustainable way. So we have to work now to achieve the goal and go towards the sustainable management of destinations in the future.
Thank you, Lorena. And do we have any props? Because I know the question was asked by Christina from EPTPO. Thank you very much, by the way. Do you have any news from Istria? Is the model being applied in your territory? And was it what motivated the question, or do you have difficulties in applying the model in Istria? Or I don't know, Christina, if you can take the floor, or if we need to intervene so that you can speak. We could see you for a second, but
yes.
Okay. Hi, Christina.
Hello to everybody. It's not working day today in Croatia, so I'm from home.
Thank you so much.
I'm following from home. Yes, we start to cooperate with our destinations. We involve them in MITOMED in all steps, but we didn't use this model in practice yet. But it sounds good, and Nagore presented very well. I hope it will catch by politicians that something needs to be done. So we signed some agreements with them. We will see what will happen in the future.
Okay, then. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not always easy to.
Yeah.
On the chat, Josep Rodriguez, he said something that I think is very important. I don't know if everyone is reading the chat, but he pointed out how relevant carrying capacity is as a measurement, but it was like impossible to think about it a few months before. And he's saying now it's actually something that people are doing, and both sides, residents and tourists, that they are understanding for the sake of health. So it would be important to to keep launching this sustainability message. I fully agree with you, Joseph.
That was a very interesting comment indeed, and thank you for mentioning it, Nagore, because it was a bit lost in the in the conversation in the chat. Okay, do you have any other questions before closing? Because our colleague Nagore has to leave at 11 sharp due to other commitments. Nope. Thank you, Christina. Well, just before closing the meeting, well, of course, I want to thank Nagore very much again, and thank all the participants. Thank also Lorena and Massimiliano for the great job as always, and Jasmine, who couldn't be here today, but she was behind the scene as well to get things prepared. Just save the dates for the upcoming webinars as we are doing for each session. So we have 3 upcoming webinars, one on the 24th of June, which is on Wednesday this week, about Eurovelo 8, a Mediterranean long distance cycle route. Then we have another one on the 29th of June, better in winter. This one sounds interesting. And then another one on the 30th of June, which is called A Model for Sustainable Tourism in the Coastal Areas of the Mediterranean, the case study of NECSTouR Islands. So this will probably be very interesting as well. So if there are no further comments or I think that many thank you to everyone from everyone. So thank you very much. Thank you. If there are no other comments, we can just close the meeting, and thank you everyone. Have a very nice
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
See you all very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.